it's my first time in India. It's really exciting for me, especially the car driving on the roads. It's a new experience for me here. But I just said to my colleague, when I come back to Munich tonight, I will try again also to drive like this in Germany, so then it's maybe a funny thing. So I'm here to talk about active learning. We see all over the world, Wolf Vision is a company based in Austria and Europe. We see all over the world, active learning, that's the new thing. Everybody who is involved in this kind of teaching, they love it. Because for the students, it's action. They're involved. They're closer? Okay, sorry. They're involved. The technical thing, working for a technical company, sorry. So all the students, they love it. They are involved in the class. They are learning, they do it by themselves. And the teachers are more a coach walking around in the room. And for the teachers, it's a completely new experience to have a tighter connection to the students, not just standing in front and we always call it throwing content on the students. So that's exactly what Wolf Vision does. We are having experience more than 25 years now in building products and innovations for the educational market. And to just have a short lineup on our products, we started with document cameras, so it's desktop versions available and also ceiling visualizers where you can bring analog products into your presentation, show it on the screen, do handwriting, because it's often still wanted by the professors to use a blackboard, for example, because it's still, for mathematics, better to do it on a blackboard or a whiteboard. The other product lineup, what you see at the top of the slides, this is our Sign-Up family. So about 5 years ago, we brought it to the market. We see the world is changing to the digital world. So we designed an all-in-one collaboration system. So it has a lot of functions building. Depending on the functions you need, you can choose one of these 3 products. And you can, for example, wireless mirror your content to the screen. But also, maybe you want to record the session which is going on because you're going for lecture capturing and want to give it to your students as a recording. But also it is possible to stream out to the world. We all know the distance learning technologies, or stream it into the classroom, and maybe the students want to follow up the presentation on their own iPad. All these functions are possible with our technology. So 2 years ago, we started developing our active learning solution. So we thought that as a first step, we should travel around the world and talk to all our customers. We have a really close connection to our university customers, and talk with all the involved people what is important for them for an active learning. Because if you talk to a technical person, it's more this having all the opportunities, everything should be there and it should be really the latest technology. But you also have to talk to the academics because they are the users. And we all know all these fancy technology things are developed. You have to control this thing. And this is really important. But also we talk to students because students, they want to have the experience with learning. As we heard it before, it's not always teaching and just talking to the students. They should be involved. They should do their own learning, because we all remember back in the university, but also now, when you sit in a lecture hall for hours, it's sometimes hard to concentrate. It's a long time to do your notes, to listen, and sometimes it's hard to remember everything. So what is an active learning space? There's just a short picture from our marketing documents. It's student stations. The room is divided into student stations. 4 to 8 students are meeting up at the pods. And normally there is a keynote speech at the beginning. So the teacher will give an intro, give an information about what is the topic of today of this class. And then they flip the classroom. This is also another word for active learning, the flipped classroom, because then the students take over the control and they start working with each other. They work with their own devices, they search the internet, and the teacher is more or less just walking around in the class and is not standing in front and be like a coach for the students. And what we see often all over the world in our projects, often PhD students are helping the professors to be coaches. So there are more coaches in the room and the students just work together. A big advantage is also if, let's say, Team Red, they found out the perfect solution for the problem. It should be possible to bring the content back up to the screen and turn Team Red into the teacher position. Then they can present what they just worked on. So this is active learning. What have we learned when we discussed with all the universities all over the world? We learned it is so important to have a flexible room design. Because if you want to implement one of these new technology rooms into your university, how big should it be? Should it be for 100 students, or should it be just for 50 students? So it should be important that you have maybe 3 sections, and you have a wall to divide into different sections. Depending on the size of the team, then you can go for a small session on the left-hand side and another session on the right-hand side. It's also important, and it's a more technical thing, you have to integrate that thing into your network. This is so important because you want to connect to a video conference. It's also possible with our system to let's do a Zoom call and bring in a teacher from another university, or to spread out the session to students which are not on campus. So to integrate everything properly into your network, that's a really important thing. When we talked to the students, they told us they want to work with their own devices, with their own cloud services, because they're used to it. Everybody of us, we have our smartphone, we have our tablet. It's a personal item. We carry it every day with us. So we know this user interface. We want to work with this, and this is important. And they also told us it would be really great to meet up at the stations for learning sessions. So when there is no session going on and there's no teacher in class, it would be so great to meet there and work together in a team and solve the problems they have to solve and build up the knowledge they need. When we talked to the professors, they told us the most important thing, usability. It should be no rocket science. It should be not this technical thing with menus and settings and so on. It should be really easy to control. And we're talking about sending streams to different student stations, sending files to different student stations, and bring the content back to the main screen. There is a lot of things going on, but how can we design a user interface to make it as easy as possible? And the other thing, what they want to have, they want to control the room. So they want, if they do an initial speech, for example, they want to lock down the stations, that they have the attention on themselves, that they can do the presentations, and also maybe have an overview what the students are doing of the pod. Because sometimes they don't see the screens, and it's interesting to really see what the students are doing. This is what we did. It's the V-Solution matrix. It's exactly all these functions built together. It's really easy to integrate. It's really a price-sensitive product because it's just our boxes connecting with each other. You don't need any additional hardware for that. And the control, as you can see, is on a tablet, so the teacher can walk around freely in the room, don't have to come back and do all the actions. So that was just a short introduction. Now I want to show you some projects. We launched a product 18 months ago. We already did nearly 200 projects all over the world. And since I'm from Europe, I brought some examples from Europe to show you how the V-Solution matrix is integrated in the universities. So the first project, that was one of our first customers, is the Aberdeen Dental School. As you can see, they have, it's a little bit dark, they have this head to do the trainings on their dental education, and they have all the tablets, all the touch screens mounted to this desk. So always 2 students are there. A big advantage of the system was they want to have their iPads involved because they have X-rays and MRI scans and things on special softwares on their tablet. Also another medical approach was the university in St. Andrews in Scotland, Europe. This is a dissection room, so always 4 students together are doing the practical trainings in surgery. They have the table with the touch screens, and they can use, including the gloves when they're working on the bodies, to control the devices. And it's a good opportunity to practical work, as we heard before, but also search the internet maybe for some additional information they need, And if the teacher needs, can help them out, he can also give them additional documents, presentations directly to the stations. Another project we did is the London Business School in UK. It is a quite big installation. It's a business school. They do the marketing classes mainly in there. They have 18 student pods with 6 students at every pod. And it's quite often used, so especially the older professors loves it. It's another way of teaching. So they created their own training videos for the other faculty members. And yeah, they're planning to do another 2 rooms this year. And the last project I brought is in Germany. That's for corporate customers. This is an innovation lab. You can rent this space, and companies are coming in to train their staff there and do this active learning in this kind of classrooms. As you can see, they have a projection for a normal presentation and a really flexible room to move around. And what have we learned in these 200 projects we did all over the world, in Japan, in Asia, in US, in Europe? What have we learned? And the most important thing what we have learned is you have to find the sweet spot for these active learning spaces. Because there is technology, and you can have the fanciest and latest technology, but you have to control it. And you also need the design of the room, so the place is really important. If you design a room like this, you have to think about the workflow. How can the students meet up? How can they annotate on a screen? How can they work together? And the most important thing, the people. Bring them on board, the technical guys, they want to have the security, but most important, the teachers, the professors. We brought them really early on board in this project and gave them a guidance how to prepare the session, because this is totally different to this kind of presentations where you have your PowerPoints clicking through. So how to prepare, and also give them a guidance, maybe a technical assistant for the first session to help go through the first session. But what we all see in all these projects, and this is not because we sold the hardware for it, everybody loves the active learning because it's so much more experience, and they're involved, the students, and also the teachers, they love it because the connection to the students is so close. And you can build up really good knowledge and use perfect your time at university, especially for postgraduate programs where employees coming back to universities. You don't have a lot of time to sit in lecture halls, but here you can build up really good knowledge in a short time. So thank you very much to give me the opportunity to talk about this topic, and if you have questions, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tarun and I represent Mercer Metal. We are an assessment company. We do digital online assessments for a lot of institutes, corporates, and government. We work with Ministry of Skill Development, Ministry of HRD. And thank you, Professor Jose, for giving us the opportunity. It's great to be here. Talking about technology in classroom, there's so many tools that have come up in last 5 to 7 years. It's primarily intervention by private players with support from government. There are a lot of online learning tools. I mean, what Andreas talk about is hardware which can be installed in the classroom to help people deliver the knowledge. There is personalized learning content. There are in-classroom streaming that happens, online assessment that happens. But to put it in a perspective, all these tools can be clubbed in 3 buckets. One, first is around delivery. You know, the hardware, what you talk about, what you just spoke about. All the tools helping in improving the delivery of the learning, the content. Second is around the content itself, wherein the gamification of content, the interactive nature of the content, the improvement in the quality of the content that happens using technology. And the third area is around efficiencies. Most of the tech intervention that has happened is around efficiencies, bringing in academic and non-academic processes in a more efficient manner. So these are the 3 primarily areas, buckets in which most of the tech intervention can be bucketed. we've seen a lot happen in last 5 years, and we expect more to happen in next 5 to 7 years because the pace at which innovation is happening, the cost of innovation, the time to bring out the innovation, to time to take it to the market is coming down, and which would increase the pace at which the innovation will happen in terms of education. Even now, when we talk about innovation, all those learning apps which are available, flipped classroom, teaching support system that are available, that is, even now touch just the top 20% of the institute or the education system. If you Google for top engineering or the number of engineering colleges in the country, the first answer that you get is there are 10,396 colleges, out of which only 396 teach. Rest 10,000 are primarily shops which are churning out engineers. And if you look at some of the recent employability reports, they quote around 10 to 20% people or engineers are employable depending upon what report you refer to. And you add graduate colleges to it, the problem is much larger. Employability is a huge issue. When we hire for our companies, the hiring rate is not more than 5 to 7%. Out of every 100 people that we interview, we're not able to hire more than 5 to 7 people. The knowledge and the skill primarily, which Dr. Shetty spoke about in the previous session, the skill is missing. Whatever teaching, learning that is happening, it's all classroom, it's all theoretical, and the curriculum needs to get updated. But even now, whatever we are seeing, the impact that we see is primarily around top 10 to 20% of the institutes. So the challenge that we have right now is how do you impact education at scale? How do you impact learning at scale? And technology is one answer. We're still waiting for a technology which at a lower cost, which is affordable, accessible, can be deployed across the country given the infrastructure issues that we still face today. 3-4 areas where we think we could look at in terms of how technology can support. One is online learning, and I see Swam here as one of the partners. So government has taken up this initiative of mainstreaming online education, and that's a great initiative. But again, recognition of online learning, digital learning is yet to be there. I think government and a lot of corporates need to recognize online learning as a credible source of education, and that is first step. That would increase the traction, rigor, and quality of training that happens through online education. Second is, when we look at our schools in our country, whatever support technology that is available, teaching still happens in a classroom. Teaching still happens through a professor or a teacher. And when you look at K-12 or some of the higher education institute, the biggest block in usage of technology, adoption of technology, is the teachers group. You go to some of the teacher training institutes, the condition is very bad. So I think the first intervention that needs to happen in terms of adoption of technology in a classroom should happen in teacher training schools. The teachers which are coming out of these schools should be adept enough to adopt these technologies and deploy them in a classroom to help them in terms of learning. And third would be around making some of these technologies work in tier 3 remote locations where the challenge of employability is much larger, so that these technologies are deployable in a limited or restricted infrastructure that we have. We've seen some of the startups deploying tab-based solutions in some of the schools, some of the regions, but again, that's a very capital intensive and difficult to scale. So again, we're still waiting for that technology which could be deployed at scale, which can be used by masses, and at the same time help them improve their skills, which can give them sustainable livelihood. Right. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can we take some quick questions, please, from the audience?
About the equipment that you have, I was wondering whether the back-end software has adequate APIs to connect to other software such as Moodle or any open source platform or MOOCs platform, etc., so that the contents could be very easily shared across multiple platforms and entities.
Yeah. Yes, this is possible. So what we can do is we sit in the network, and when we do recordings, for example, to share it, we can hand it over on a network drive, but also if we can upload it to a server if you want to copy the file there. The other thing is we have our own API, so it can be easily integrated in your network. So maybe if you want to, let's say, work with your room management system and your workflows, no problem, this is there, yes.
Yeah, good morning. I have one question. Two students, both of them have done BTech Computer Science, and after that they are doing Python programming. One has gone for a regular classes, 3 months classes. The other one has done from online course. As a HR manager, still the preference is for the student who has done the full-time course. So how to address? Do we need to educate HR managers also in terms of knowing and telling them that both the students are equipped with the similar kind of courses, provided they have got all the scores equal? So how to address this particular issue? Because industry also need to be educated towards taking online courses seriously. Still, it has been taken as one of the additional thing or substitute or supplementary thing. So how to address this?
I completely agree. I think it's more of a business call. It's more about skills these days rather than what degree and what marks you have. When you look at some of the larger organizations, because they hire at a scale, so they need to build in those filters at various levels, which could be your tier of campuses, it could be percentage of marks, so on and so forth. But a lot of these progressive new age companies are not looking at your marks or the brand of college that you're coming from. They're primarily looking at skills. And that's where assessments come into picture. Irrespective of what location you come from, irrespective of what education background you have or what mode of education you went through, assessments would put you on the same platform, give you equal opportunity to showcase your skills. And that's where we see a lot of corporates, the 2,000 plus corporates in country which use our assessments to filter people basis just their skills, not their educational background.
Yeah, here, front row. Yeah. See, I was trying to understand, it's fine, education we give, but what I have seen, correct me, that if you can give multiple skilling through these certification courses, that add values to your resume. That is point number one. Point number two is when I talk to the corporates for the placement, they are basically looking at how many certifications along with the degree you have done. Of late, this is the requirement of the corporate. So how is it that you can felicitate that? Like for example, we as a company, we are giving training in practical application, but we have not got partnership on this. So can you throw a light on that how you can come into this?
So when you say corporates are looking at skills, they're looking at some sort of certification which can say you have skills.
From the internship angle.
Yeah, the basic assumption is the curriculum which a candidate went through doesn't hold any value. Now, look at from a corporate's perspective.
Yeah.
When we reach out to people for a job opening, there are thousands of applications that we get. How do you evaluate those candidates? How do you filter them? So one, the best possible way would be meeting each one of them, spending say few hours with each of them, understand them better, get to know their skills, and then take a call. But that's just not possible. So one way is looking at these certificates with the assumption that all these certificates have credibility, they have the rigor, and the corporate knows that if someone has gone through this particular program, I know that he would have gained some level of skilling. So that's one way of looking at it. The second way of looking at it is, creating those filters which could be basis, as I said, assessments. And that's where, we're not a training company, we're an assessment company, and that's where we can partner. We can help you set up a robust assessment system where the filtration can be much more fair and objective.
You mean to say maybe the skill fit and the work fit certifications which you can provide, which will attract the corporates?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Tarun, this is for you. This is regarding the, we are talking about transforming classrooms and all. What I have seen is like there is a cycle time actually. The diffusion process of technology takes its own time to reach to the last mile. So our institution, it tried to adopt this smart board technology and suddenly it went out of the contest because something else came. And then we found very hard for the users like teachers and all to actually get trained so fast. So technology is hitting us very fast, but we are not able to train manpower to actually adopt to such technology. And that is creating a kind of a wall. I mean, people are viewing it in a very different way. What to learn, what not to learn, and again, there are so many things. So my question is, can we arrive at a kind of standard operating things which should be adopted in education way? Because there are so many things coming. One institution is doing something, we feel like that is the ultimate. Nobody is rating them. And we feel like we are old, they are new or something like that. So how do we address such kind of paradox wherein some technologies are doing something great, but not others are doing something different? What standard we should be following?
So to break your question, there are two parts of it. One is the training of the manpower, and second, what is the right solution for your
Yes.
Training of manpower, I agree, is a massive challenge, with all due respect to the teacher community, but that's the biggest challenge in terms of adoption and deployment and optimal usage of technology when it comes to more so in school segment rather than the higher education. When we train our teachers, lot of training or the resources, lot of training happens on the tools, which is probably not the right way, because the tools, as you said, will keep updating, right? I mean, today you're working on one tool, tomorrow there'll be some other tool. So the teacher will feel, handicapped as to today, she's learned this tool, and by the time there's time to probably deploy it, learn it, and use it to help students, there's a new tool in the market. I think the training should more focus on familiarity with IT technologies rather than one or two specific tools. That's one. Second part of the question is what is right. I mean, if you're using one tool, the second tool, I mean, that's primarily an institute's call, what works for them, instead of looking at what is happening around. That's a problem with we as Indians. I mean, looking what is happening, working for others, or that herd mentality is been a problem for us. But I think that's a more objective call that an institute needs to take as to what is working for them, whether they adopt a new technology or not. If whatever the objective of adoption of technologies were there, and if they are being met with the current tool or technology, I think it's good enough to stick with them, unless there's something that is missing.
Thank you. Thank you both of you for having this insightful session, and I'm sure it was indeed exciting to know how the technology touches and impacting the learning ecosystem. And on that note, may I now request Professor Deepak Pathak to present the token of appreciation to the panel, please.